My name is Michael, and the title of the event today is Playing the Game That Plays You. So I want to throw out an initial statement. Every person within this room and outside of this room are spending their whole lives taking their best shot at happiness. Everybody within this room and outside of this room is spending their whole lives taking their best shot at happiness. Yeah? And how we think we're going to be happy, our attitude towards happiness, the methods that we use, the strategies, the ideas that we have of happiness are practically limitless. They come in all different types of combinations and varieties. However, out of all the different types of ideas and attitudes we have towards happiness, we can categorize them in particular ways. So the idea is that today we want to explore how they're categorized. We want to explore what type of game we're playing. Because if we're conscious of the game that we're playing, we can take control of the game. And if we take control of the game, we can either play it, manipulate it however we wish, and or stop playing the game completely. So the idea is that by the end of this session, hopefully, we would have given you enough tools and insight so that you can be the scientist of your own destiny. So we're going to start off with a few questions. We're going to ask everybody to get in groups of threes. And the idea is that the other two in your group, try as much as possible that you don't know them, right? So we're going to get into groups of threes, however you want to mix it up, and try to make sure that the other two people in your group, you don't know them. Right, let's do that now, please. Yeah, so just get into groups. You can feel free to use some of the rooms, some of the floor space. So, my name is Michael, and the title of the event today is Playing the Game That Plays You. So, I want to throw out an initial statement. Every person within this room and outside of this room are spending their whole lives taking their best shot at happiness. Everybody within this room and outside of this room is spending their whole lives taking their best shot at happiness. Yeah? And how we think we're going to be happy, our attitude towards happiness, the methods that we use, the strategies, the ideas that we have of happiness are practically limitless. They come in all different types of combinations and varieties. However, out of all the different types of ideas and attitudes we have towards happiness, we can categorize them in particular ways. So the idea is that today we want to explore how they're categorized. We want to explore what type of game we're playing. Because if we're conscious of the game that we're playing, we can take control of the game. And if we take control of the game, we can either play it, manipulate it however we wish, and or stop playing the game completely. So the idea is that by the end of this session, hopefully, we would have given you enough tools and insight so that you can be the scientist of your own destiny. So we're going to start off with a few questions. We're going to ask everybody to get in groups of threes. And the idea is that the other two in your group, try as much as possible that you don't know them, right? So we're going to get into groups of threes, however you want to mix it up, and try to make sure that the other two people in your group, you don't know them. Right, let's do that now, please. Yeah, so just get into groups. You can feel free to use some of the rooms, some of the floor space. So we're going to move on to the second part of the presentation, which is a very, actually no, I don't want to give it away too much because I need 4 volunteers. And of those volunteers, 2 of them have to prepare themselves to be blindfolded. Yeah? So, your hand came up first, so I'm going to choose you as well. And rather than know, I think it's just been to check the flag, so unfortunately, so yeah, so you and we need 2 more volunteers. Let's see. Who put their hand up first? Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So, out of you two, you have to discuss who wants to be blindfolded, and who wants to be blindfolded. Okay, cool. So what we're gonna do is this. You 4 come up with me. Yeah, and I'm gonna take them out of the room, and then I'm gonna come back and explain exactly what we're about to do. Okay. Where's the blindfold? Yeah, so that's one group. The second group will be here, yeah, and the third group here, yeah? Okay, so we're gonna do it like this. I'm gonna put a target in the room somewhere. And what we're gonna do is this group, you're gonna tell the blindfolded, the person who's blindfolded, instructions to move to the target. Does that make sense? Yeah? You're going to give instructions to move away from the target. Does that make sense? Yeah. You're going to give instructions to move towards or away from the subject, depending on how you feel. So you get to choose whether you move them towards the target or away from it. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to put the target ahead. Spin him around so he doesn't know where he is. Make sure he's not dizzy. And then you're going to, and when I say begin, we're going to
what's the target?
However you want to decide.
So everyone has to be completely silent right now, because he's going to...
Okay. I'm going to spin you around a little bit. Get you a little bit dizzy. Sorry, man. Are you feeling a bit dizzy? Okay. Stand still. Now, what's going to happen is you have a target in a room, okay? And you have your, your priestly advisors who are going to advise you to move toward the target in a room, okay? Cool. Excellent. So, begin.
I catch the
So let's go to the first example. People feedback to me. What was going on? Okay. Anything else? Any feedback?
Chaos.
Yeah. Actually, feedback from the first and second. Any feedback? What else was we seeing? What was going on? Other than noise and shouting. Anything else? Confusion. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. Anything else?
Somebody say influence.
Say that again.
Influence.
Okay. So how in terms of influence, what was going on? How were people trying to influence? Any feedback from this side?
Because we're like, you know, sisters and sisters' friends and stuff, so we thought that she would listen to us.
Okay.
So maybe people actually, so we thought that would work.
Influenced by, let's say, familiarity.
Yeah.
Anything else? How are people trying to influence? By shouting, by raising their voice,
Clicking.
by trying to push them. By what direction? Who said clicking? What was specific about the clicking though?
They follow the sound.
Yeah, so it's almost like you built a link between the sound and actually doing the sound and trying to get some mobility there. Okay, good. Anything else? How are people trying to influence? Following, yes. So they were trying to get close, right? Crowding there. The idea is that they were trying to literally... Okay, yeah. So the idea was that in these examples we see that people trying to get close, trying to knock off different influences, basically trying to get into the minds of the volunteers, right? And the method they knew how was through shouting, through actually trying to physically be, as close as possible. But also one thing I don't think anybody mentioned is the power of repetition, right? So there are some people, some key voices, that if the volunteers found that there was some trustworthiness within the voice, they'd start following. So what happened? I can't remember who was repeating so many times, but somebody just kept repeating the same You kept repeating the same instructions over and over again. What was you saying? Move out, follow me, etc. What ended up happening? The volunteer was drifted well away from the target. So although he was not necessarily truthful in the act, you still had influence, right? So that volunteer represents us in this world. And what's going on? We have a bunch of people, millions of people, shouting many different instructions based on what's going to actually truly make us happy. Yeah? So pretend that target was happiness. What happened? Some people got drifted away. Why? Because the voice was stronger, whether or not that voice was truthful. Whether or not that voice was in the best interest of the person, the individual. So that's just like us. We get caught up in all sorts of influences, all sorts of advertising, but is that repetition, is that shouting, is that noise from the different types of adverts or influences, whether that's from our friends or from the media, is it in our best interest? So then what happened is, who drifted her to the target? I can't remember who it was. Sham, he's gone. So Sham, he was able to somehow convince her that her best interest was landing a click, but he could have clicked her straight out of the hall, right? So we want to just dive a little bit deeper into what this actually means for us. We are in a game. And that game we can call the threefold matrix. Now within that game, everybody, every soul, every spirit soul, every person, every individual is trying to take their best shot at happiness. But sometimes we fall off the mark. Now if we fall off the mark, what are we left with? We have 3 different types of zones or modes or categories that our intentions, our thoughts, our activities, our character, our style of dress, the food that we eat, the type of friends that we attract, the jobs that we do, all of these different various activities are falling into different categories. And the first one we want to introduce you to is called the mode of passion, or passion. So passion is when a person is trying to be happy, but they've calculated their own game. So let's say, there's not many people, or let's take it like this. There's some people that we may have met who will only help us if they can guarantee that somehow or another we will help them in the future. Right? Have you met people like that? People who actually don't really care about your own self-interest, about your own interest. And the only reason why they're trying to help out and trying to get as part of the plan and part of the game is because they are hoping, or they're in the hope of that you're going to satisfy them or you're going to help them in the future. So we describe that type of help as help being in a mode of passion. When someone's in a mode of passion, it means that their ideas, their thoughts and their desires and their character is all about me. Sometimes we may have people who are very against like religion and spirituality and everything like that. But deep down they want to be worshipped. So we may have, you may meet somebody who, they may show off about like their past or their history, and then what happens? It's to get some followers. They want to be worshipped. Look at me. I used to do this, and this. I hung up with this person. I had this relationship. I've got this new phone, and I want you to adore me. So people are trying to use what they have or what's in their control to get followers. I was on there's this new, what's that? The iPhone 5, right? So now the new iPhone 5's come out. And what happened is I stumbled upon an article when I was at work, and some guy, he was walking out of, he had a big bag on his side. He had massive, like Dre headphones or something going on. And he was outside of an Apple store, and he was holding up an iPhone 5. Because he was like, the first person in the world or in the area or something like that to get an iPhone 5. So that is close to be in the mode of passion. Because I want to attain something, but I want respect, recognition and fame for it. Right? Or when somebody does an activity and they're very much attached to the result. So, I don't know, let's say you're, I know people who, for instance, may have cried over not getting the grades that they wanted to get at, like school or university or wherever. So, what does this mean? Although somebody's done the activity of revision and studying and, trying their best, they're attached to the result. Because based on that result, that attachment is going to determine whether they're happy or not. So that's the mode of passion. The mode of passion is thinking about I, and the other thing it thinks about is me. So all it is about I, me. So then we want to introduce, and another thing is like this. Pretend that I am representing a graph, just like an XY graph. Now, the y-axis represents my happiness, and going across represents time, right? So what happens is somebody in a mode of passion starts off like this: high happiness, high pleasure, high stimulation, high excitement. And then what happens? Over time, their happiness drops. So you buy your iPhone 5, or you buy a fantastic video game, or you buy some the latest shoes or makeup or something. So what happens? When you buy it, it's fantastic. The world's special. I've obtained what I've been thinking about all along. And then, what happens over time? What happens? It breaks. Or your contract comes in and you're over your bills. Or the shoe breaks. Or, that fragrance, that deodorant that we bought, all of a sudden it's not really so fragrant, it doesn't smell very nice. So, initially our happiness is high, and then it drops. Then we move on to the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness means that I am considerate of other people, and I am happy in service. Or the mode of goodness also means that although I try my best in my duties and activities, I'm not attached to the result. I'm balanced. I've tried my best in my revision, or, I've tried my best to, help out around the house or just serve in some sort of way. But I'm not attached to the result. So even if it doesn't go in my favour, it doesn't matter. I'm still me, I'm still an individual, and we're always going to have times where there's going to be good times and there's going to be more difficult times. So I'm going to give you one example of someone who's revising. That's generally considered to be the mode of goodness, because they're learning, they're interacting, they're trying to gain knowledge. So the mode of goodness is like this. Pretend we have this graph again. So our happiness is on this scale, and time is going across. So someone in the mode of goodness is like this. At first it's considered to be like poison. So when you start trying to revise this, like, don't really face it, or like, for instance, one of the things I like to do is, like, try to play the drums on madanga, or learn different, like melodies, different kirtan melodies, or different, like, sort of spiritual chants. So at first I'm thinking, forget this. It's like, I just want to learn it now. So at first, it's quite difficult. But what happens is the more and more you learn, that happiness steadily increases. Does that make sense? Right? Or let's say I go to school, or let's say I go to school or I'm learning some sort of language. At first it's a bit tough, it's rough, it's hard to get into the habit. It's hard to wake up in the morning, and it's just difficult. So at first the happiness is a little bit, it's like, I'm not really getting any joy or taste out of this, but I'm going to keep going because I'm determined. So what happens is that over time you achieve your result. So that is an intention or a desire in the mode of goodness. Then you have a third mode, which is called the mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance means that, I'm going to read out a few qualities of somebody who's in the mode of ignorance, typically. Somebody who's in the mode of ignorance, they're very expert at cussing people. Right? They're very expert at insulting people. They can find any criticism whatsoever to cuss people down, or to insult or offend them. Or, they don't tend to do things with much attention. It's like, they just dibble-dabble, and they're like, just half-eyed, and they just bounce around from activity to activity, and they don't really know what they're doing. So that's considered to be someone in a mode of ignorance, because they have a supreme form of life, but they're not really doing anything. They don't really think. They just dream. They oversleep. They overeat. So this is considered to be the mode of ignorance. Or like when somebody is maybe very, very, like, incredibly lazy. There's a difference between being lazy and resting. Resting means that we have an intention to get back to good activities, but for the time being we're trying to rest our system so that we don't overdo it, we don't burn. But you can, and you may have met people who are really, like, just dull. I don't know if you met anybody like that. Really dull. They can't really find any type of, they can't really find any pleasure in life or any happiness in life, or they just want to try and bring people down, or they're unnecessarily violent, or unnecessarily critical. Because nothing's really going on in my life, so I may as well spend my life looking at other people's lives, trying to bring them down, because nothing's really going on in my life, and well, I don't really want anybody to succeed anyway, and I don't really care about anybody. So that's just me, So that is a typical symptom of someone who's not acting in knowledge. Okay. So we have a last activity for you. We are going to group everybody into, let's see. We're going to have 4 groups. What I want you to do is arrange yourself so that you have roughly the same members in your groups. but make sure you know as little as people as possible. So I want you to mix up a little bit. So we just had this activity, this blindfolding activity. So I don't want you to be, as much as possible, don't, try to mix up the groups just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to get into just 2 groups now. Okay.
Hanging around with or looking at someone more than practically. Winking is passion.
What does everyone think? Passion. Okay, good, excellent. Second, next. Actually, we'll do about 3 at a time. So the next round.
Procrastination or using the snooze button. Ignorance.
Procrastination.
Or using the snooze button.
Okay. Procrastination or using a snooze button. So this group says ignorance. What do you think?
Ignorance.
Yeah. Okay. And another line.
Stealing a product from a shop.
What do you feel? Any different views? Different views? Why do you say ignorance?
Stealing product for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, why did you? Oh, I think your passion is beginning discussion.
Oh, so passion. Why do you say mixture of passion and ignorance?
It's quite difficult to determine between passion and ignorance.
So again, we just want to listen to the answer because it's very important that we try and share each other's insights. And here as well, so yeah, continue.
I was still going to say we could just define passion again and ignorance.
Passion means me. Ignorance means without knowledge of consequences, of ramifications, and unnecessarily immoral or harmful or violent.
You could say depending on the circumstance, could be goodness. If you've got a kid who needs food, isn't it about your debt? You could bring food.
Good. So I'm going to bear that in mind. I may come back and address that point you made. Good comment. A nukes group. So, pardon? You're reading from the 4th line, yeah?
Yeah, the 4th one, yeah.
Okay, eating food, yeah?
We didn't really categorise that because, well, it depends on what type of food you eat and how much you eat.
Yeah.
Because if you eat meat, that's sort of in the mode of ignorance, and if you overeat, that's also in the mode of ignorance. So, yeah. So it really depends on how much you eat.
Excellent. And is there any time when eating food could be in a mode of goodness?
Yeah.
How? Why? Okay. Do you want to explain? Okay, so when we are eating spiritual food that has been spiritualized by, before us tasting it, we're offering it to the Supreme Person, that is considered to be in a mode of goodness. Also, generally, when we eat foods that sustain our health and maintain our health and help us to grow, that's also in a mode of goodness. Okay, thank you. So, 5th line, we're going to go through this real quick.
Listening to classical music.
Listening to classical music. Goodness, passion, ignorance. Goodness. And?
Yeah, goodness. Reading books of wisdom.
What did you say that was?
Reading book. Oh yeah, goodness.
Thank you. Okay, so giving charity. This group has said that giving charity is in goodness. Do we agree? Does everyone agree that it's in good? Did anybody write anything different to goodness? Yeah, so everybody wrote goodness, yeah? Okay, so it's described that, yes, generally, giving charity, that intention is goodness. If there's different times, different types of people, and different places we can give charity. So as I think he was about to mention, I'm going to use you as an example. If I just give, £10 to somebody who's going to use that finance or that money to harm themselves, it's considered that although the charity or the intention may have been good, we're going to help somebody hurt themselves. So it's considered to be in a mode of ignorance. Or if I build a school, and then my surname's Olabode, so I start putting Olabode secondary school, community school, I built it. It was me who built it. I financed it. I'm the one who had all the architects to build it, and basically you should be thanking me while we got this school. although it's a charity or a charitable act, is considered to be in the mode of passion. Because even though the act is good, the intention is all about me. Would you like to read the next one?
Hanging out at the pub with ignorance.
Okay. Hanging out in the pub, mode of ignorance. Okay.
Reviewing dressing, passion.
Okay. Anybody disagree? And so that was your three, yeah?
Because like if you're at the pub, it like could mean like you're drinking. Like when you go to the pub, it's mostly like because you're gonna go have a drink. So like could mean like you could be like just not caring what you do.
Okay. Thank you. And this group?
Gossip. Gossiping we done ignorance.
Why is gossiping in ignorance? As in, what made you write that?
Because some people don't know because everyone else does it, so they kind of just think. And then you just go along with it, so you end up doing it, and then you get to habit of doing it.
Okay, so it's almost like doing something because, or doing something even though you don't know why you're doing it.
Yeah,
You're doing it.
yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? I think someone's passion here, Ravi?
I would call that ignorance because you don't know how detrimental it is to you.
Okay.
For example, like I could end up gossiping for like an hour and not realize that the whole time I was just talking crap about somebody else. So the whole time it's ignorant, like you don't know that it's actually detrimental to you. At the time you're enjoying it.
Very interesting. Interesting perspective. Right on there.
Yeah, I was gonna also add on to the ignorance because although you might be saying it just like it's trying to speak with your friends, you're still insulting other people. And I wouldn't say that it's passion because you're not mentioning yourself and trying to glorify yourself. It's more putting other people down. So I'd say it's ignorance.
Okay, interesting. So it's funny because I work in a bank, right? So what happens is, you have your colleagues and your team and everything like that. And when one of them is removed away from the room, guess who everybody's speaking about? And then what happens is he walks into the room, and the person who initiated the conversation, when he walks in the room, guess who everybody's speaking about? So what happens is we may tend to talk very much about a person, criticize them, find aspects of their characters which are flawed, that we call character flaws. And then we feel that by interacting with another person, criticizing this other guy, we think that this person's keeping our secrets. But what's going to happen is we're creating the circumstances where the person we're gossiping to, they're going to just go around somebody else and they're gossiping about us, right? Does that make sense? So we don't want to be caught that we just want to criticize people. Because the people who we are speaking to, they're going around and criticizing us as well, behind our backs. That's what the type of mentality that gossiping brings. It brings in those types of opportunities, which are obviously detrimental. Would you like to read the next?
Arguing, swearing,
Okay. Arguing, swearing, and ignorance, and then littering and ignorance.
We're kind of middle of ignorance and passion.
Oh. Okay, yeah. So littering obviously is harmful to ourselves and the environment. So what I'm going to do, only because we're a little bit pressed for time, is I'm going to read through the list, and if you disagree with any particular answers, then just raise your hand and we'll quickly discuss it. So, revising 6 months prior to an exam steadily, goodness. Oversleeping, ignorance, washing up. I guess depending how it's done, because it's not that it's in goodness if you go around and just smash the plates up and you just leave the plates all in a mess. Washing up. Arriving late to a meeting, that's passion. Adverts get together and just do nothing. And then here we got raving and clubbing, that's very passionate because it's all about trying to stimulate ourselves. Visiting the museum, goodness, that's all about learning. Stockbroking is very passionate. Browsing Facebook. What's that S?
As I.
Oh, ignorance. Okay. Learning how to play drums, goodness. Multitasking. That is... What's multitasking? Is that ignorance, passion, goodness? It's fairly passionate because we're not in balance. We're trying to do so many things at once. Giving in a relationship without expecting in return, that's goodness. Not allowing somebody to hurt you, goodness. Learning how to speak Chinese, yes, could say it's goodness. And video gaming. Ignorance, passion, goodness. Ignorance, passion, we're heard. Again, it depends obviously on the type of video game, but because it's very excitable to the senses, it can be considered to be in the mode of passion primarily. You have a comment?
We have something different for like a couple.
Okay.
Like for example, learning how to speak Chinese could be passion. It just depends on what you're doing it for. Like if you're learning to speak Chinese to preach to Chinese people, then that's goodness. But if you're learning because you want to show off to your friends, for example, because like, oh look, I can speak Chinese now or something, that's going to be passion. And then like for example, not allowing somebody to hurt you, like saying you're not allowing them because you punched them in the face first, that's not goodness. That's and then the other one was arriving late to meeting. We thought that was also like ignorance, but it's quite like lazy, like you say, not either here or there, just like I can't be bothered to get up now, put my alarm on snooze, and then they're late.
Thank you very much for your comments. Would you like to give yourselves a round of applause? So it's interesting. We have an activity that could be in a mode of passion, ignorance, or goodness, but as you were pointing out, there is a subtle mode going on that is based on our intention. So even though an activity could be in one mode, our intention could be in a completely different mode, right? So let's say I talk about somebody. That's a function. If I talk about somebody in order to try and spread knowledge and try to understand this person's needs or intentions and try to serve them in some way, that's goodness. If I'm talking about someone just to criticize them and bring them down because I'm envious of them, it's ignorance. Right? So we have an activity, but what is underlying, what intention is underpinning that activity? So we are, let's say we go back to that exercise that each individual is caught in this zone or threefold matrix. We, or rather in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Vedic text, I'm sure many of you have heard of it, we have a personality named Krishna who's speaking to his friend Arjuna, and in the 7th chapter, he explains to Arjuna this following paragraph. In Sanskrit, Daivi yesha gunamaya, mama maya dharatyaya, mam evaye prapadyante, mam mayam etam tarantite. Which means that this threefold matrix is an absolute nuisance. It's a pain, it's annoying, it's nonsense. But by trusting in him, by serving the Supreme Person, we can actually overcome these modes. Although it's a pain, by serving in a spiritual way, it's nothing. These modes are nothing. So, as Kishan and a few of the other boys planned, we'll have, well, everybody had Prashad already, Kirtan, which we're spiritual chanting, and meditating on spiritual sound vibration. These are all transcendental activities which help us to rid of the influence of the modes. So we know that standard life or material life is like chewing gum, right? So what happens? We have a fantastic, beautiful, raspberry or strawberry or lemon flavored chewing gum. But the more we keep chewing it, what happens? The more that taste dies down. So we are getting involved with so many different activities. But what happens is, over time, that same activity that once gave us joy or pleasure is now giving us all types of suffering. Or some of our friends have been talking about how they may get into a relationship and it's all sweet and it's all, ecstasy, and then what happens? We may have so many arguments. So the idea is that we must check ourselves and see the life that we're living. Are we just living a life of continuously eating different types of chewing gums? Right? Are we just getting involved with activities that over time we either dislike or it doesn't really give us the same buzz as it first did. So the idea is, what Christian's explaining to our children is that, yeah, you can get involved with ignorance, passion, and goodness. That's actually not an issue. It's completely up to you. But if you desire to serve Him, you will not run out of, you won't feel, after some time you're unhappy or dissatisfied or you're not excited. It's not chewing gum. So we want to give you a small experiment to try at home. Now that you have an understanding about the game that we're in, we want you to do an experiment. That you choose 10 minutes in your day to raise your consciousness and raise your desires onto that platform of transcendence, onto the platform of being spiritual, whether that means maybe reading some spiritual books, engaging in some spiritual chanting, just having a spiritual discussion with a friend or some family, looking at different types of pictures. And you can feedback the results to Abhishek or Sahil or whoever you know from this Jammin, and I guarantee that you will not be able to prove that your life is the exact same as before you tried the experiment. So, unfortunately, due to time, some time constraints, we will end there. I think we're getting nodded off.
Yeah. No questions at the moment. If anyone wants
comments that you want to make, feel free to either write them down on your phone or on paper. And then after, we've got various skits and dessert coming up, etc. After those different activities, feel free to just approach me and we can have a small discussion. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael, for that. Let's give him another round of applause.